Alright, so first of all, it took me forever to figure out how to do this video, so know that I love you. This is a cloud pour. It uses enamel paints along with your regular paints. You mix them to about medium light consistency until it's running off the stick. They always say like honey, whatever the hell that means, but till it's running off the stick and makes like the tiniest mound as it disappears into the cup. Here I am torching because I don't want to have a whole bunch of bubbles in my stuff. I used a darkish pink, a light pink, black, red, and gold. You'll see in the finished product that it's mostly pink, but you never know how it's going to come out when you're doing these types of pours unless you've practiced for like eons. So I poured everything in a ring, round and round and round in a circle, not the type of ring where you just pour and don't move the cup at all. But this was a ring pour, and I'm not sure if you can see yet, the little white that's coming up is the enamel paint that I mixed in. I layered a color, then the enamel, a color, then the enamel, a color, then the enamel. Sometimes I'd skip the enamel and just did a color and enamel. It can go however you like. Then you pour it all over the canvas, and then you start to tilt. Mine tilted ultra slowly because I made the paints a little bit thicker, which is what I wanted because I want to be able to see how to tilt the painting to the way I want it to go. So the paint moving a little bit slower helps me to control what it's going to look like in the end to a certain extent. This is a 16 by 20 canvas. It's Arteza. Their canvases are really good. I used all Arteza paints as well. I used milk paint for what I've been calling the enamel. You can get it from Home Depot or Lowe's. And I'm still pouring here, trying to get the composition right, but also being really nervous at this point whether there's going to be enough paint to go all over the canvas. If I did this again, I would probably use another ounce or so of paint, or I would pour the paint on in a circle and then put paint around that circle. It helps it to not roll over itself. As it rolls over itself, you lose more paint. You have to account for the fact that you have the sides of the painting. If you were to have a painting that was 1.5 inches deep, for example, you'd have to pour more because you know it has to go over the sides. On the bottom of this painting, I put some jumbo push pins, and it helps to keep the painting up off of the surface. And right here, you can see that I'm like gathering paint from the bottom that's dripped off to put on this edge because I'm really worried I'm not going to have enough paint. And I wasn't sure if I was going to, so I took some of the paint from the edges, not the actual edges, but underneath the edges where the paint is dripping off. And I put it here so that the paint wouldn't roll over itself any more than it needed to. Then I pick it back up. I start tilting a little bit more. And because I don't have quite enough paint on this canvas, I can't really play with it too much after I've tipped off the rest. But I played with it at the beginning, kind of rolling it around in a circle to see where I want it to go first. I would recommend that you stop as you go around and get a bigger circle, that you stop right there. It lets you see a little bit more what you have so that you can decide whether to tilt right or left or up or down. You start to get a feel for it as you do these more because you can decide, oh, I don't want this part, so you'll tip that part off without tipping all of the paint off of the canvas. And you can see here that the paint is really struggling. It's really struggling, but I think I'm gonna make it. And these paints are really good paints. I try not to waste them, and that's probably why I ended up with not as much paint on the canvas as I should have used. But it worked out this time. I got lucky. If you want to not have what looks like cells on the outside, you would probably use that white enamel more on the bottom, and then the future layers would have just the solid colors. But you really have to play with it to see how it's going to turn out. And you can pour this in a lot of different ways. So check out my comments for recipes, and happy painting.